Senator, last night was a deadline for posting money numbers. What kind of a number are you going to post?
Yeah, I think we'll do well. I think that we should meet people's expectations. More importantly, I think we will have raised enough money to make sure that we can compete for the next quarter and beyond.
You should have some idea of what you're going to post.
I think we'll do pretty well.
Okay. In the fight between Congress and the President over funding, Congress has passed a funding bill for the war with a timetable.
Right.
The President says he's going to veto it. If he vetoes it, and if you can't pass another bill by the deadline, he's certain to accuse you of not supporting troops in the field. How do you respond to that? How do you deal with that?
Look, I think that the vast majority of Democrats have consistently voted to make sure that our troops have the supplies that they need. And in fact, one of the concerns that we've had has been the failure on the part of this administration to train National Guardsmen properly, to make sure that they've got the night goggles and the protective armor and the armored Humvees that they need. So, if you look at the course of this war, Congress has been extraordinarily consistent, and Democrats have been consistent. We want to make sure that troops on the ground have what they need. My expectation is that we will continue to try to ratchet up the pressure on the President to change course. I don't think that we will see a majority of the Senate vote to cut off funding at this stage.
So you think at the end of the day, if he vetoes something that has a deadline in it, you'll pass something that doesn't have a deadline?
Well, I think that nobody wants to play chicken with our troops on the ground. But I do think that the majority of the Senate now has expressed the belief that we have to change course in Iraq. Obviously, we're constrained by the fact that a commander-in-chief who has also veto power has the option of ignoring that position. And I don't think we could muster at this point a majority of Senate Democrats or Republicans to vote for a cutoff of funding.
So you would come back with something that pays for the war without the deadline?
I think that that's what we're going to try to push for, but if the President vetoes this, one of the things that I've tried to emphasize is that the American people have to continue to put pressure on their representatives so that at some point we may be able to get a veto-proof majority for moving this war in a different direction.
But you're not there now?
We're not there yet.
You have a background in constitutional law that you like to talk about a lot. There's been a showdown between Congress and the administration of these U.S. attorneys.
Right.
Is it time to change the nature of these federal prosecutors' jobs? Should they be political appointees?
Well, the truth is, historically, the system that we have has worked fine. And that is that initially they're political appointees, but once they're in place, once they've been appointed, then there's a hands-off approach by the White House. It is almost never for us to find a situation in which the White House has meddled with day-to-day decisions that an attorney general is making as to whether or not to prosecute a case. And that really has broken precedent, and that's the reason why I think so many people are concerned. For the most part, you've had a bipartisan tradition where the president appoints a member of his own party, somebody he supports, for a U.S. attorney job. And at that point, the U.S. attorney then is functioning as an independent agent, making decisions based on the evidence and on the law. And I think that what we'd like to see is a return to that tradition. We've got to investigate to see the degree to which the White House strayed from that tradition.
Going back to the Iraq thing, that's been almost a defining issue in the Democratic presidential primary. Talk to me about how defining the position on that war is. You said last night that you would not have voted for the $87 billion additional supplemental because it had the $20 billion in planning money. How defining an issue is this?
Well, I think that it's important for voters to get a sense of how the next president will make decisions in the foreign policy arena. And I think that there are a number of senators who have acknowledged that they got bad information or might have made different decisions. But I think that what I've tried to do is to suggest that the speech I delivered 5 months before we actually went into war shows how I think about the problem. And hopefully voters can draw some conclusions about that and say to themselves, this is somebody who understands international affairs, understands the consequences of a decision to go to war, and that he will make good judgments in the future about how U.S. military forces should be deployed in a dangerous world.